Was this a robbery? Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach just wrapped up with the result being a majority draw, but we definitely have a lot to say, so let's get right into it.
So what a fight that was, a very competitive one, but honestly, going into this fight, I, like many people, thought this was going to be a pretty smooth sailing victory for Gervonta Davis. He was eventually going to break him down, find that shot, maybe time Lamont Roach into those deeper rounds, but that's really not what we saw whatsoever, and Tank was fighting very dirty in this fight, and I don't know how he didn't get a point taken. I don't know how the ref didn't call that knee in the 9th round not a knockdown. There was so much wrong about this fight, and I feel like Lamont Roach was robbed, and undeservedly so. He did enough to win, and the fact that it was even a draw shows how close this fight was, because obviously Tank is the A side. This is all under Tank's promotion. He's the star, he's the one favorite, he's the one expected to win and the superstar in the making. So the fact that it was even a draw shows you how close this fight was, and the fact that Roach didn't win is just insane.
Yeah, it really just is ridiculous. Like you were saying, so many people, including us, even making a video on it, thought that Tank Davis was gonna win this fight, but we just saw the resilience, the skill, the technique from Lamont Roach all 12 rounds, getting there toe to toe with Tank Davis, one of the pound for pound boxers in the world. And there was just so much wrong with this fight, so much corruption we saw in this fight. That knee specifically was completely corrupt. Tank Davis just takes a complete knee and then turns his back to the corner to get the towel to wipe something off his face. And for some reason, the ref just decides to let it slide, let Tank Davis have the time during the round after taking a knee and not counting him, not doing anything at all, pretty much. Just letting Tank take his time, enjoy himself, let him wipe himself a bit, and then get back into it, which is insane. Everyone knows the rules in boxing. If you take a knee, that is an automatic count. That is an automatic 10-8.
Knockdown.
And now going to the decision, that knockdown that should have happened cost him the fight. And even without that knockdown, you could easily say Lamont Roach won majority of the rounds. He landed the stronger punches. He landed the better punches. And in general, it was just rough to see.
Yeah, Roach was doing great work, and it was the first time we really see Tank look pretty vulnerable in there. Yes, he was talking to Roach the whole time. They were both going back and forth, and apparently Tank came out and said he had grease in his eyes from his hair, and that's why they had to wipe it. But that's up to the ref's discretion. That's not you taking a knee in the ring and then going to your corner, turning your back against your opponent, and then getting it wiped, and there not being any consequence for it, as well as the fact he was staying in his corner for too long when the ref was calling him to fight. Like, so many things that were just dirty should not be allowed. In the clinch, he was literally throwing shoulder strikes as if this was MMA, as if we were watching Conor McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone against Lamont Roach. Like, yes, Tank did some good work here and there, definitely had success specifically with that straight left as he got his foot on the outside of Lamont Roach's lead leg and was landing that straight left to the body, setting that up early. The early rounds were definitely closer, but I felt like Roach, if anything, settled into this fight more than Tank did, which you don't usually see. Usually it's Tank that's breaking down his opponents. Usually it's Tank that's settling into the fight and really landing the shots, but it was just back and forth. There was no clear Tank easily dominating this fight and taking over. There was no point where you felt a shift where, okay, Tank is really starting to tee up now. Tank is starting to come alive. No, if anything, it was Roach who was starting to come alive towards those later rounds, and Tank looked pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly, and that's just why it's so hard to score some of those rounds for Tank Davis in general. Usually in his fights, he's able, after a few rounds, to sort of get his opponent's rhythm. He's able to start countering, landing some strong, powerful punches that wobble and hurt his opponents. But in this fight, Lamont Roach stayed disciplined. His defense was on point. He's switching from his Philly shell to high guard. His footwork on point as well, staying quick, sharp, light on his feet, whipping out that jab. And we just saw him take his time, find the right shots, and Tank just didn't seem like he was able to do too much with Lamont Roach in general. He did have, of course, some moments of success, but overall, I would say Lamont Roach had the way larger moments and really was able to put a stamp on a lot of those rounds. Especially the later rounds too, in which he was starting to open up and was even starting to hit counters on Tank, some shots that was even wobbling him a bit. We've never seen Tank in those situations before, where he's getting hit clean to the jaw. So an incredible performance for Lamont Roach, and that's just why it's so unfortunate the result happened what it is, because this was supposed to be a moment to lift up Roach for a performance, a huge underdog story, and this was his massive opportunity, and he took the most out of it. So to see what happened, all the corruption with the knee and everything, is just sad.
Yeah, this was a star-making performance for sure, and he should have got that opportunity. Instead, he got his moment taken from him, and you just don't like to see that. A draw in this case really just ruins it for all parties. Gervonta Davis can't walk away with this, has a great win in his resume. They gotta run this back for sure. But I feel like the key to Roach really having success was he didn't show Tank too much respect. A lot of guys go in there and respect the power that Tank goes. He wasn't scared to brawl, he wasn't scared to exchange, he wasn't scared to actually get in the fight, get in the fire with Tank and go toe to toe. And I feel like a lot of people go in that ring and are kind of scared of the power and the presence that Tank has. And yes, people do win rounds against Tank, but then they know, okay, later on Tank's gonna start to get stronger and stronger as this fight goes on, and I'm not gonna be able to stand there with him. I gotta be on my bike, I gotta be running around. No, Roach stood his ground. He fought, and he fought his ass off. He was looking sharp the whole fight. The jab was money, and Tank wasn't able to get fully started and have it go in his favor, really. Roach put on a great performance, and I don't want to make it sound like this fight wasn't competitive, because it was. I just feel like Lamont Roach did enough to win this fight, and it's a shame, because if that knockdown was counted as it should have been, as the rules clearly state, if your knee touches the ground like that, you take a knee, that's a 10 count, that's a knockdown, and a 10-8 right there would have won Lamont Roach the fight. It's just simple math.
And even in the build-up for this fight, Tank has been talking about recently too that retirement is soon, and he's not as really motivated, it seems, in recent fights. And this is just another issue with boxing. It's just so unfortunate to see the sport getting tainted by little decisions like this that end up ruining amazing classic fights, because otherwise now Tank is gonna get hate and even some of the criticism we're giving in this video, and a lot of it's due to how the sport is being run, with these decisions and fighters being favored based off popularity and based that it's their promotion. And Tank, regardless, is a great fighter, but it's an amazing moment like these where a new fighter comes in, underdog, is able to put a performance like that together and deservingly probably won the fight, and yet he just doesn't get the decision. That shouldn't be happening. And moments like what the ref was doing shouldn't be happening either.
Yeah, it's insane that this went the way it went. That refereeing was just a bit disgraceful. Like, it felt like Tank could just literally go to the referee and be like, yo, I want a break right now, and he'd just allow it. Like, what are we doing? The rules have to apply to everyone equally. For some reason, Tank is getting that extra treatment, that special treatment from the referees, which it just should not be the case whatsoever. This is a fight, this is a boxing match. Everyone should be having an equal chance to win the fight, and Lamont Roach just did not get that. And honestly, that's what makes this decision even more disappointing, because it should be Roach walking away as the victor here. And I'm the guy who was saying this fight's not going to be close. Tank's going to find the shot. Tank's going to knock him out. Tank's going to beat him. But now I'm sitting here being like, okay, come on. How did Roach not get that decision? That should have been a knockdown in the 9th round, and he should have won the fight. That's just that. I feel like Tank needs to run this back. You can't move on now that this rivalry is here with Lamont Roach and how this fight went and how it's a draw. And now this is the first time Tank Davis doesn't get his hand raised in the ring. It's not a great look. He has to get this back, and it's going to be a tough rematch, because we saw stylistically Lamont Roach could hang in there, to say the least, if not beat Tank Davis. So we need to see this one again.
Most definitely. And where does this now really put Tank in the pecking order of top fighters around his weight class? Because for so long we've been thinking about matchups like Tank versus Haney, Tank versus Shakur, versus maybe even a Ryan rematch versus Teofimo Lopez. But in terms of Tank, can you really say that he would beat guys like Shakur Stevenson, in which Tank got outboxed by Lamont Roach? Why couldn't Shakur really outbox Tank? Of course, styles make fights, but pure boxing wise, it might be tough for him to fight some of these other guys.
And yeah, you gotta think this decision is gonna affect Lamont Roach's career pretty badly. Imagine he won this fight. Imagine the millions and millions that would have been made from winning this fight and being able to call the shots, being an A-side in a potential rematch, beating Tank Davis, beating a superstar like that, one of the faces of the sport currently. Imagine how well that would have done for his stock. Instead, it's a draw. Obviously, that does raise his stock, but it doesn't elevate it to the point where it should be, where he is now the top dog. He should be above Tank in the pecking order, because he just beat him, and he's coming up from 130 pounds, came to 135, Tank's weight class, and beat him. He should be the lightweight champion right now. He should have the 135 titles. It's just a shame that he doesn't, and this is gonna cost him pretty badly, and it's a shame the boxing politics and everything has kind of screwed him over. But in terms of what's next for him, that rematch has got to happen. Like he said, if that knockdown would have been counted, he would have been declared the victor, which is just corrupt. The fact that it wasn't counted, when do you ever see something like that? But man, Roach showed that he is good. He is high level. I'd like to see him in some of these other fights. This automatically puts him in the conversation with all these other guys. It's gonna be interesting to see what both guys do next, but honestly, shameful the way this whole thing played out in my opinion. So let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on this fight and this decision, Lamont Roach versus Tank being a draw. But if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out this video on screen on why Ryan Garcia versus Rolly will not end well.